Hello, and welcome to the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. Thanks for joining us. Before we get into the episodes with the guests as they come on, and I go to them and we interview them and we have conversations and tell stories, I thought it'd be important that I tell you who I am and why I'm doing this and kind of where I come from and what my background has been the last 20 years inside the United States Army. What vulnerability means to me and why I think it's important, and the importance of telling stories, right? I think everybody has a story. Not everybody has the courage to share that story or has a platform to share that story on. So I hope to provide that for some very interesting people that'll hopefully shed some light and show that we're all going through different struggles and trials and tribulations, and together through conversation and listening and hopefully your comments and your feedback, we'll move forward together and be better people. I think people need people, and not everybody has a medium to share their story. So I hope to provide that for everybody that's willing to come on and have conversations with me. This is an uncomfortable thing for me. I'm not a podcast host. Well, I am now, but it's not part of my background. It's sitting in front of a camera and talking is vulnerable. But I think, like I said, I think it's important. I think everybody has a story, and we need to share those stories. So who am I? Yuma Barnett. I'm the founder, producer, editor of the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. Born and raised in New Mexico. On a cattle ranch out in New Mexico, my whole life. Grew up working hard, getting up before the sun comes up and going to bed when the sun comes down. I made the decision early in life to join the Army right out of high school. I had a few moments when I was, growing up on those ranches in New Mexico where I had some times where I thought, ranching's pretty difficult work. And joining the Army, it can't be harder than ranching. There's nothing harder than some of the stories I tell about getting up, at 2 a.m. and having to go check out first Kev heifers, on my spring break. My spring breaks were much different than some people's spring breaks. Or, I lived in rural New Mexico, so it was a 23 mile drive one way to school, and that was a short drive for a lot of us out there. So the Army just seemed like something that would be something I could do, something I could fall right into, because I came from a hard, blue collar type lifestyle and hard work. And I truly believe to this day, as long as you show up and you're willing to work, you're going to be successful. And kind of fell in love with the Army, and came in pre 9/11. I watched the towers fall on 9/11 with my roommate Matt Commons, who was eventually killed in Afghanistan. And spent the last part of better part of 20 plus years in the Army, and most of which was in the 75th Ranger Regiment, which I love that organization. And soon, with blood on my boots and sweat on my brow, I'm going to hang up my tambourine and walk away from the 75th Ranger Regiment. And I've been through some hard times there. A lot of hard times, a lot of good stories coming up, a lot of great times. And, struggled with my own demons of how do I share these stories? How do I talk? How do I achieve optimal mental health? And it just came through talking and being vulnerable with either my mental health providers or my wife or my kids even. And I realized the power of vulnerability. And I was doing, a transition assistance class, and the moderator talked about you need to be vulnerable. And it made me curious about that word vulnerable, because I, like many people, kind of related vulnerability to weakness, which it's not a weakness. It's greater than that, and we'll delve into that a little bit of why the reason behind this podcast. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what the last 20 plus years has meant for me in the 75th. And there's a story that I tell, and if you can picture with me, a 16-year-old Yuma, right, standing outside of his locker room of his high school basketball team. And we're about to run out onto the court and play a district rival who we hadn't beaten in 20 some odd years. The Cliff Cowboys, if you're from that area, you know who I'm talking about and what I'm talking about. And we had a really good team this year and a good shot. And we're standing outside that locker room, and Metallica Inner Sandman is playing. That was our run out warm up song, you know, and Metallica's playing, you know, you can probably hear it now as I say it to the Inner Sandman, you know, I can hear it. It gives me the goosebumps to this day. And I turn and I look to one of my teammates and I said, man, I wish I could have this feeling for the rest of my life. This feeling that I have right now. This energy of being with you, being with the team through all the, you know, the sweat and the tears that we've been through, the hard work, the after hours work, the practices and the drives home late at night and the summer camps, and just that feeling we had when we knew we were a good team and we were at the point as a team where we were about to crest over and be, you know, go from good to a great team. It's such a great feeling. And, you know, as the Inner Sandman hits its climax there and we run out on the court, you know, that feeling's amazing. We ended up winning that game. It was one of those, you know, where everybody rushed the court type games. It was an amazing time. And I just remember, I wish I could do this for the rest of my life. You know, if you fast forward to 2006, I'm a squad leader in 1st Ranger Battalion. I'm deployed in Iraq. I'm on the back of a CH-47 helicopter flying to a target in Iraq. And for those of you who've been on a helicopter, there's certain sounds that you can probably hear now, certain smells of the fuel, you know, of the Rangers that are on board with you, the feelings, the ebb and the flow and the sway of the helicopter. And the 6-minute call comes across. And at 6 minutes, you know, we kind of come around, get up, we start getting up on a knee. You know, I can feel my knee right now kind of aching a little bit as I've spent a lot of time on a knee in the back of 47 waiting to get off of that sucker. And the 3-minute call comes, and it was at that moment during that 3-minute call that it dawned on me with all those sounds and watching the door gunners stand up and start to take position in their doors. And I see the K9 handler and his K9 up front, and the K9's, you know, pulling out the leash, ready to go do what he was trained to do. It dawned on me, you know, and like I said, I get chills right now when I think about it. You know, I did it. I was able to replicate that feeling that I had inside that locker room for 20 years inside the 75th Ranger Regiment. And, you know, we come in, it's 1 minute, bird flares, land, run off, go knock out the objective. And all through that night, I just was in awe that I was able to replicate and find something that spoke to me the same way that basketball team did, that same feeling. And I knew then that I had found my purpose, right? My purpose in life. I was going to be a career Army Ranger, and as long as the Ranger Regiment would have me and I could physically do it. But I knew then that was my calling. That's what I was going to do. Now, you know, I would have continued on this path and stayed in the Army longer, you know, maybe been like a 30-year guy or one of them, you know, did you see up there that did 36 years and was the sergeant major and the senior enlisted advisor for some 4-star commands. But I was driving my kid to school one day, my now 13-year-old. He was 10 or 11 at the time, right? And I've told this story before, but driving him to school, having just normal conversation that you have with an 11-year boy. Sometimes there's some quiet moments, and he looks over and says to me, unsolicited, "Dad, I'm done." And he elaborated, "I'm done with you deploying," because I was about to deploy again soon. I'm done moving around. We'd moved around a little bit more than in the last few years than we had in the previous years in my career. And he has a hard time settling into schools and meeting friends, and he just gets anxiety, and he was done with it. He didn't want to do it. And, you know, I've spoke again before. I came from a broken home, and I moved around a lot and stuff and did things, and I knew exactly what he was feeling. And I always told myself when I was younger, when I had kids, I wasn't going to do the same thing to them that had been done to me. And then I found myself, I was doing it, right? So that kind of changed everything for me, right? I'd thought about maybe getting out. I wasn't sure, but this solidified it. I'm gonna get out and retire out of the Army. And I now had kind of had identity crisis, right? The last 2 years as I'm trying to transition out of trying to find that purpose again. What am I going to do in my next phase of life? And I've seen so many of my friends get out and have trouble and struggles, and, you know, some unfortunately ultimately commit suicide and, you know, alcoholism and get divorced. And how do you avoid that? Well, I think you have to be proactive in your approach, right? I was a proactive in all my approaches in the 20 years in service. Why wouldn't I be proactive in my approach to transition? So I started studying and reading and going to transition workshops from benevolent organizations, and became aware of this word vulnerability, and kind of started looking at it and realized that vulnerability wasn't a weakness. Vulnerability kind of surrounds some of the best moments in my life, some of the hardest moments as well. But when you think of vulnerability, I think of when I was standing outside that locker room about to run onto the court, doesn't know if you're going to win or lose, or the basketball tryouts where you don't know if you're going to make it to varsity, or when my parents got divorced and I was a little kid and I didn't really understand what was going on. I felt extremely vulnerable during those moments, some good, some bad. When my son, when Jackson was born, and I'm standing there in the hospital room, and I don't know whether to grab a leg from Kate and help hold it up and why she pushes, or to run away and hide in a corner, or pray, or what to do, because I feel helpless and I feel vulnerable at that times. But when the outcome of it was my son and becoming a father, so vulnerability is everywhere, right? It's how you approach it and how you look at it, and the perspective you use when you are surrounded in vulnerable moments and vulnerable times. And through this transition journey, I was also, I went through the Honor Foundation, and they told me, and helped me understand the importance of telling stories. And everybody has a story, right? And everybody, should tell their story, right, if given the opportunity. But you have to understand who you are as a person before you can fully understand what you're going to do, for the next, to find your purpose. And I started enjoying telling stories, right? And I told a story about my friend who was killed, and it's on the YouTube channel if you want to go and check out that story. But that's kind of what started this podcast, is told that story, and I had a lot of great feedback. I had feedback from friends thanking me and telling me that they were going to go seek counseling and do things to try to better themselves and address some of the demons that they had been avoiding their whole life. And I just realized through that there's something here. There's something important here, that these stories need to be told. And, through some back and forth with my wife, telling her, like, somebody should do this, somebody should tell these stories, she finally, got fed up with me saying that and said, yes, you do it, right? So, here I am, send me, is kind of how I approached it. Because I do think it's important to tell the story of the 75th for the last 20 years, Army SOF, because that's the community I know. But more importantly, the story of just people, right? This isn't going to be a podcast where it's just military personnel, right? Right now it is up front because that's who I know and that's who I have placement and access to. But hopefully we'll transcend and just show that everybody has struggles and hardships that they get through. And it's relying on other people and being vulnerable and having the courage to ask for help that help you get through those hard times. And I think there's a lot of similarities between specifically SOF personnel, because that's where I spent the majority, or really all of my career, and professional athletes. You're an athlete, from the time you're old enough to swing a bat or throw a ball, all the way through, in a lot of cases, through your professional career. And then all of a sudden it's just gone. It ends, right? And it's the same for us. At some point, the Army's going to end. Being in the 75th is going to end. It ends sooner for others, and I've been fortunate enough to do it for 20 plus years, but it's going to end, and it's going to end rapidly. And then what do you do? Like, what's your purpose after that? So you got to be proactive in it. And I think telling your story and understanding your story is going to help people process, right? And like I said, it's the same in professional athletes. You've done it, you've been given a lot of money and things that don't have a lot of real meaning, they're just things. And you have prestige, and you can walk into a room and people know who you are and what you've done. But then when it's over, as we've all seen, a lot of professional athletes fall on their face when they leave sports. They become broke, alcoholics, gambling. And it's, having the courage to go and ask for help. And it's hard to ask for help when you're that A-type personality. And I think through this, somebody will hear somebody that they can resonate with, and maybe they'll go ask for help because of it. I just want to help people be the best versions of themselves, right? And telling stories, I think, is one of the best ways to do that. Is a great catalyst to be the best version of yourself, is to tell the stories, to listen to other people tell their stories. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to tell those stories of athletes, of service members, spouses of service members, the stories of some business leaders, because there's some vulnerable moments that business leaders go through, and you're doing a startup and you don't know if you're going to make payroll on Friday. You don't know if you're going to be able to pay your employees. That's how do you deal with that? And you communicate and you ask for help and you seek guidance and you seek out people to help you. And that's what I hope to do through this Leading with Vulnerability podcast, is just help people know that it's okay to ask for help. Know that it doesn't matter the rank that you wear on your chest, the amount of money in your bank account, what you've done in your life. You're going to we need people. We all need people to help us be better. And hopefully we can all come out of this with a little bit better understanding of each other, a better understanding of ourselves. We can have some laughs, probably shed a few tears, but at the end of the day, we'll understand, and we'll have more empathy, and we'll be able to help each other move forward and be successful in our lives. And that's truly what I want. I want you to be the best husband, father, mother, spouse, son, daughter that you can be. And through telling these stories and listening to the stories, I think we can get there. I look forward to it. I'm excited as heck for it. I can't wait to put it out there. Please go to the website and check us out, leadingwithvulnerability.net. And if you can, this is not a business for me. I'm just doing it on the side as a side project. But if you can support us, we appreciate the support to just keep the lights on and keep it up and running. Because I travel to people to do the podcast. I'm not going to do the video podcast thing because I think it's important to sit down and talk face to face and share a cup of coffee and talk to one another. So any support you can give us is great. Please like, comment, subscribe on YouTube and on Anchor, and get it out there, because it might not resonate with you, but it's going to resonate with somebody, and it might save their lives at the end of the day. And I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. And before I jump off here, I just want to say thank you to my wife, who's helped me, chase this goal, this kind of dream of helping people tell their stories. She's my chief operating officer. She's my chief financial officer. She's my editor, and she's the editor of the blog and the podcasts. And she graciously lets me set up in our bedroom studio where we bring people in and do interviews when they come here, and I'm not going to them. So thank you to her, and just thank you to you. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your feedback when you give it. And truly wish you the best of luck in any endeavors that you have, and happy to talk if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or send me an email. And I look forward to sharing these stories with you and leading with vulnerability. We'll see you soon.